No singing in the chamber.
Madam Chair, we're live and Councillor Villarreal is on as a panelist.
Okay, terrific. There we go. All right. So at 1:04, I will call to order the second week, fourth day of budget hearings. It is April 18th, and if we could get a roll call.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councillor Cassett. Here. Councillor Lindell. Councillor Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Villarreal.
Present.
Councillor Romero-Worth.
I am here. Terrific.
There you have a quorum.
All right, so we have one budget to do today. Has lots of components, I think. So I'm sorry, what's happening? Oh.
Madam Chair, we're having some technical difficulties with the TV.
Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you. All right, Madam Chair, we're ready. We have the presentation up on the screen.
Terrific, I see it. Okay, so we have our new director with us. Welcome, Director Dupuy. Nice to see you. And I don't think I have any comments, so let's just dive right in.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councilors. We have a overview that shows the different divisions within public utilities. Those being environmental services, utility, customer service, wastewater management, and water operations. And fundamentally, our goal is to provide consistent and reliable service to customers in order to meet their needs and provide their quality of life, or for their quality of life. The table below provides our current vacancy rate. I believe this was a question that was one that we wanted to make sure was addressed because it had come up previously for others. And that is currently 61 of 258 positions are vacant, which is a 24% vacancy rate. Next slide. And I spoke a bit about our mission and the departments that are divisions that are within the department. So we can go to the next slide. We have a decrease in the overall amount we're asking for FY24 of 1.7 million or 2.1%. And ultimately, this is due in part to one-time expenses that were approved in a prior fiscal year, and also some carry forward expenses from the prior year. And we have a overall increase for the city for funding salary increases. And so you may be familiar with it, but I'll just restate it. It's a 3% salary increase for those earning less than 100,000 a year, and 1% increase for positions earning over 100,000 a year. So that's included. And then I was going to defer to some of the division directors, have them describe these highlights. And these are just highlights, nothing specific otherwise. And first we have our environmental services division. Deborah, you could come up and talk to a few of your highlights.
And I should have mentioned at the beginning, if you'd just introduce yourself, first and last name, and your titles as you are called on to speak, that'd be helpful. While we in the room may know who you are, people watching on Zoom or on the live stream may not. So just want to make sure people are familiar with who's speaking and what their positions are. So thank you. Thank you for being here and welcome.
I'm the customer service manager for environmental services. We've got a conference in Houston right now.
And for the record, Shirlene is our division director, our environmental services division. I was just saying that our division director is Shirlene for the Environmental Services Division.
Just a few focus points that you'll see increases in the environmental services budget. First one would particularly be the 2.4. I'm sorry, the 4.7, the landfill tipping fees. What it is that we originally budgeted 6.1 million, and we increased it, and that was reason being is because of the rate increase that will be implemented in 2023. The other big ticket item was the replacement of the vehicle 2.4.
I'm sorry. We are having trouble hearing you. Is your mic on? No, I don't think it is. So a little green.
Now?
Yeah, there you go. All right. So sorry, maybe I hate to make you do this, but
No,
just
that's
back
fine.
up. We do have a member of the committee who's not feeling well and
Okay.
is on Zoom, so could not hear you. So thank you. So sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Okay, so I was just touching base on the 6.7 million for the, I'm sorry, the 4.7 million for the landfill tipping fees. We originally budgeted 4.1. The $600,000 increase is due to the rate increase that will be implemented in July of 23. The $2.4 million is for replacement, or not replacement, new vehicles. For the solid waste division, we'll be getting 2 new vehicles for our residential, 1 for recycling and 2 for commercial. The $1.3 million for the maintenance building is right now, that is going to be for design and project management of our new ESD building. It's out to bid right now. So that is what the 1.3 million for that.
And I would just mention that that is also out for RFP currently.
Correct.
And I'll invite Nancy to come up for our, Michael for our wastewater.
Michael Dozier, wastewater division director. So wastewater management had forgone a few years of not purchasing any major sized vehicles that are purpose built for wastewater. We also had not replaced a few of the other vehicles that are used just to commute into town, whether we have to go to San Mateo, things like that. This year, we actually received a electric vehicle and really appreciate it. So our plan was order another electric vehicle for one of the vehicles to be purchased. A larger purpose-built 1-ton pickup and a Bobcat tractor and a backhoe were the reasonings for the 525,000.
Thank you, Michael. Next slide, please.
Let's hold on a second. I think we're having a technical issue. Mr. Hopkins, can you tell us?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we are indeed having some technical difficulties. So one moment, sorry about that.
No worries.
While we wait, Madam Chair,
We'll stand in place. Yes,
Director Dupuy, do you want to go ahead and proactively introduce your whole team who's here with you today while we wait for the technology to come back?
Thank you, Manager Blair. So we have a random group of who could be here today. And it does not include everyone, but we'll go around and introduce those that are here. Jesse Roach, the Water Division Director. Michael, the Wastewater Division Director. Neil, he works in sustainability in the Environmental Services Division. Just raise your hand whenever we get to you so that you're identified. Maya, she works in our administrative division, or it's not technically a division, it's a area directly underneath, that's not a division. Nancy, she's our it's UCS, Utility Customer Service Division.
our billing whiz.
I agree. We have Jessica, who is also in the administrative our group. And then Deborah, who has introduced herself already, but she is representing Environmental Services Division for Nancy. And John Dupuy.
And I'm still going to ask that when you are asked to speak, just introduce yourself first and last name and your title. I'm not sure what the technical issue is and whether the live stream picked up all of that introduction. So that might have been nice for us here, but we'll just repeat. It is? Okay. Okay, terrific. And just so everyone knows, we're still holding in place so that we can get the presentation available to the screen.
I think this was the slide.
All right, Madam Chair. Apologies for the delay. I think we're ready to resume.
Terrific.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal says she can't see the PowerPoint and clearly we can't see her, so I don't know.
Right. Councilwoman, can you hear me and can you see it now? There was an issue earlier.
I can hear you. I can only see the staff that are presenting in front of the of the room.
Okay. We did have a technical issue that we're working. to
Now I see the presentation.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry, we've been holding in place while we wait for that to come back. But I think we're set now if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, so back to you, Director Dupuy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to transition to Mr. Roach to cover the next two bullet points.
So, Madam Chair, I'm Jesse Roach, Water Division Director, and we have some standard vehicle replacement included in the budget and $100,000 for water conservation program rebate payments. And then moving to the department highlights, one of the things to point out is that we did negotiate a wheeling agreement with Santa Fe County that has resulted in approximately $270,000 per year of additional revenue. We did select a vendor and finalize a contract to provide engineering design services for the San Juan Chama return flow project. And we're moving close to a 30% design on that. And in many of our operations, both water and utility billing, we do always push folks to use Ion Water as a tool to track their own water usage, and that enrollment continues to rise.
Thank you, Jesse.
And just to be clear for the public, Ion Water is an app that you can download on your phone and connect to your account with the water division and see in real time water use. So anybody who's a customer of the city, I believe, can have access to that. My understanding is I have it, but I have yet to establish the alarm on it so that if there is a leak, it lets you know in real time. So just Christine would not forgive me if I didn't take the moment to help people understand what Ion Water is. And Director Oster, you have your hand up.
Yes, Madam Chair, I can share a personal story about Ion Water. Just a few weeks ago, I got an alert on my phone, which we actually set up because we had a water leak in our irrigation system, which we didn't find out until we got a very large water bill. And then we set up Ion Water, and one of the valves on the inside of one of our toilets in our home was leaking. And so it actually detected a 1 gallon per hour leak, and we were able to correct it. And it's pretty cool. So we, did it the hard way and then we learned. And using Ion Water, we caught it much earlier and, a much smaller issue. It's a great tool.
Yes. So Christine Chavez, if you're listening, pat us on the back. Ion Water, everybody. You want to download that app, connect to your account, and set the alarms. I hear stories all the time about how it is saving people from large water bills due to leaks that go undetected for too long. So anyway, had to plug there. Go ahead. Back to you, Director Dupuy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that's a great segue to have Nancy discuss the next bullet relative to Ion Water, our dubbed billing expert, and the efforts that she's made regarding that.
Thank you. So just with that, when I took over utility division billing in June of 2019, we were only at 11% of our customers using Ion Water. Right now, as of today, when I looked at the system, it has increased to 19%, still really low. And like 2 individuals have already attested today, it really is a huge tool that you really need to use every single day to watch your water, watch for leaks, see if there's any issues whatsoever going on, and catch it at the front end where you only have, a leak for 2 days rather than $1,000 bill or something like that when you get that bill, a month later. So yeah, it's definitely a great tool, and we want it to be more used. So we are going to try and work with Christine and our division to get more customers to sign up and to actually use it, on a daily basis, and trying to get some of that water waste, out of individuals' houses and out of their bill for that matter. Thank you. So the next item, or skipping down a couple of items, the state, it kind of talks about 2 different things. So in June, the emergency moratorium on water turnoff ended. The emergency proclamations that were happening because of COVID, that ended in June. In October, we did start turning off commercial customer accounts that did owe significant amount. Residential started in January, and to update or to help with those residential individuals that owed money, there were a lot of state programs that now they haven't completely stopped, but they have, most of them have stopped taking applications to help individuals to get some money to pay their utilities. The state program, we received $187,000 just from one state program so far to assist residents with getting those utility bills down so that we wouldn't, turn them off. We do have about 14 agencies that does help with additional assistance, but those are also kind of dwindling a little bit. So, you know, it was a great program, lots of different companies helping, but those are slowing down. So our AR overall, it was at $4.6 million owed at the, I guess, worst time for COVID. With the moratorium lifted, with us being able to get people on payment arrangements, with all of the state money and the help agencies, and then unfortunately, potentially turning individuals off now. Our AR has been reduced to 3.2 million in about 3 months. So we like the trend. We need it to go down further. Pre-COVID, we were only at about $1 million. So COVID really did, you know, increase by almost $4 million. Much better now. We're at least going in the right direction.
And can you transition to the next slide, please?
Sorry. Jumped my fault.
Yes, please. One prior to. Yes, thank you. So I would just point out that the last bullet on this slide is what was just discussed, the 4.3 million. And that reduction has occurred from 4.3 to, what was the correct amount?
3.2 now.
3.2 now. So we have been working diligently to reduce that amount of unrecovered funds and, you know, reducing any potential write-off that may be necessary. If you could go back to the prior slide to this. One before this. That's it, right here. And I'm going to transition to Deborah to discuss the solid waste bullet that's second to last on this slide.
We're just going to touch base really quick on the residential. Oh, my name is Deborah. I'm going to touch really quick, sorry, on the residential route optimization we implemented back in August. It'll be a year this year that we implemented. We went from a 5-day collection week to a 4-day collection week. So we're collecting Monday through Thursdays, except for holiday weeks. Our staff, our crews, you know, have been working really hard. Complaints have really gone down. We do get, you know, quite a few calls during the holiday week. I think that's just until customers realize it's a holiday. But now that everybody has their calendars, the calls have minimized, I mean, tremendously. And, you know, our crews out there are doing an excellent job. We're short about 11 drivers right now. But we're working with HR right now to do a rapid hire event with solid waste, not solid waste, with wastewater. And we're going to have that May 19th and May 20th, and it'll be at the Environmental Services Division. We're going to have it all day Friday from 9 to 4 and on Saturday from about 10 to 3. So we're going to really focus on promoting our collection drivers for those positions.
Thank you, Deborah. And if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I'm going to have Neil Denton talk about one of our initiatives that I think is important to point out, but we're still working on it.
Thank you. Yes, this top bullet point refers to a green bank, which is we're calling the Santa Fe Clean Energy Fund. We were hoping to have this created in this fiscal year due to some delays from the contractor creating the launch plan and the budget and everything we need to get it in place. We're actually going to have to publish the RFP in preparation of doing that in the upcoming fiscal year. But what this will be is a nonprofit organization that will help all Santa Feans access more affordable solar energy and energy efficiency. And I think I'll talk more about that when that comes up next on the agenda.
Next highlight, I'll defer to, wait, if you could go, thank you so much for staying on this slide. To Michael to discuss our wastewater operations highlights.
Mr. Chair, Mike Dozier again from Wastewater Division. So the GIS system is something very important to us and we've been working on it. I'm not really sure how much the counselors understand what that system is. It's really just lays out every single line, manhole, location that's out in the system and some on the facility now. Where now we're actually updating it to where anybody could just come up and I can go up to it in my cell phone right now and just look at the GIS if I wanted to. If you choose a couple of our problem manholes, you can actually log into it now and see what work was done, when the work was done, and how it was done. How this tool helps us is now we're actually able to start working on replacement, repairs, or actual relining of the pipelines. That one just barely passed through council a few weeks ago, I believe. And it was a $2 million project to do a relining of a line. Well, all of that is using all the information from the GIS. We have already made now a map of the whole city that is our project areas of what project is starting and what needs to be done currently, what can be done in 2 years, what can be done in a year, what can be done next month. So we're focusing on all of that and you can actually go in and see where the root problems are. We're actually now able to link camera footage to the GIS. So we're trying to get that worked out. I mean, we have thousands of hours of camera footage of lines, looking at where any intrusions, any kind of say roots or breakage in lines. One of our biggest problems is clay lines. They collapse a lot. So we have to go in and rebuild those lines. A lot of the new technology is great because now that we know about this, a lot of the times if we can catch it early enough, we don't even have to tear up a road. So the one that just went through in a few weeks, they literally put a sock inside of the line, fill it with a fiberglass composite and expand it inside. It dries in place. They pull it out, send down a little robot to cut holes wherever everything was draining into that line, and you have a brand new line again. So it helps a lot in the aspect of, you know, if I have to dig up a road that has a collapsed line in it, the costs go through the roof and it starts causing a lot more problems. I mean, people trying to cross through the areas, drive around, do anything. So this is a really big tool that's helping us a lot to start adding to that ability to look at the future and see what we can do and what we can change. The next one on here is trainings that we did this past year. We've worked with a company, also the AWA. There actually is a company of one. It's Robert George. He is a great asset to the state of New Mexico, training and helping everyone out. We actually contracted him to come in and do trainings for all of our operators from no levels to level 4s. So that worked really good. 3 operators are scheduled to test right now. One of them just barely tested a few weeks ago and he passed his level 1. And he did attribute a lot of it to the training. He was really happy that they got specialized training. The other things we're working with is trying to get more trainings in through the state of New Mexico or through the Water and Wastewater Association.
Thank you, Michael. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'm going to defer again to Neil to explain some of the highlights here.
It's really important that we lead by example in our operations related to sustainability. So in this upcoming fiscal year, we really want to convene a team of key staff to focus on recycling and waste reduction in our facilities. For example, we want to make sure everywhere there's a trash receptacle, there's also a recycling receptacle, and that people know what goes in those bins. And this presents an opportunity to elevate people who really have a passion for our community and for the environment. And this can be a springboard into doing more than recycling and waste reduction, looking at things like energy conservation, water conservation, and also to hear people's ideas for opportunities for improvement. So that's one of our goals in the upcoming fiscal year. On the same token of leading by example, we want to work with the facilities division to make sure that we're as energy efficient as possible. We're reducing waste in electricity and natural gas usage to achieve a 20% reduction in city buildings and vehicles as it relates to our fleet. We need to be taking advantage of every opportunity. As we heard Mr. Dozier say earlier, he wants to purchase another electric vehicle. We want to purchase electric vehicles where possible. And when it comes to larger vehicles, more fuel efficient or alternative fuel vehicles such as CNG.
And just to clarify, because it was new for me, CNG is compressed natural gas. And for our last highlight, I'll defer to Nancy. It's actually the first bullet on this slide.
Good afternoon. I didn't introduce myself the first time. I'm sorry. Nancy Jimenez, Utility Billing Division, Customer Service Division Director. The long title.
Billing wizard
Billing Wizard. Thank you.
is much
Yes.
shorter.
Dubs that for a while, right? Couple of emails. Thank you. So over the last year and a half, I believe, we have done water more so than probably even me, but I get to take the benefit of what they've done over the past year and a half. We have endpoints on all of our water meters, and those endpoints are cellular. So they talk to the cellular antennas, and then they give us the read for our billing system. That's kind of the short end of it, or a real quick synopsis. And those endpoints were like 3G and 4G. And now that, of course, all cellular has been upgraded or will be to 5G, we had to upgrade all of those endpoints and switch them out. So Jesse Roach and his wonderful transmission and distribution section literally switched out 35,000 endpoints, 40,000 endpoints in about a year. And what that does is, while that transition was happening, when we had the old endpoints, just to give you a couple of numbers, in January of 2020, we only had to read manually 259 meters in the whole month of January. While the transition was happening over 21 and 22, unfortunately, for the month of January in 2023, it jumped up to 1,967 that we had to manually read for the month of January, just so that we could get the accurate bills, going out each week. And so it's taken a tremendous amount of time and employees and effort to get all of this switched out. We are finally seeing they're going back down again. In other words, we have to read less of them per month. We would love to get back to and need to get back to about 150 that we have to manually read. Most of those are in our cycle 4, which is at the end of the month, and it's in the Canyon Road mountainish hill area. So we would really like to get down to maybe 150 that we'd have to read. It really helps out with just my 2 meter readers rather than having to use transmission and distribution, T&D, over the last couple of years to get 2,000 reads. I could not manage 2,000 reads with 2 people. So they helped out tremendously. So we are working, with our current partners. They will be coming forward. I will be coming forward with a sole source. Hopefully it's going through the process right now for the next 10 years. We do have to pay for those endpoints, and those endpoints are right now a certain dollar amount. I can't really disclose anything until the sole source is finalized, but it's a certain dollar amount. And we are trying to tie into that same certain dollar amount for the next 10 years. So that will be coming to council soon, once the 30-day process has ended. So that, we can save costs now. We did this huge upgrade. We switched out 35,000 endpoints by working with our current meter company to try and think forward, save some money, do all of this kind of process. So just wanted to give you that sort of highlight as to what really is happening on a day-to-day basis to better the water division, to better the utilities, and ultimately the bill that goes out to the customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And I would just add to that, in my experience, this is one of the areas that whenever your manual meter reads goes up, it is one of the largest swings in labor that's very difficult to deal with. And our transmission and distribution staff stepping up to help the utility billing staff is a significant thing, and we're very appreciative for that. But ultimately, we want to invest in innovation and whatever options there are to help reduce that need. And we've slowly started working that down, and we'll find whatever we're able to help reduce that to a manageable number where we were before. You go to the next slide, please. And so I'm going to ask Deborah to come up and give an overview of Environmental Services Division, mission and description of services. We'll do the same thing for all 4 divisions, and that'll wrap up our presentation. Thank you, Deborah.
I'm Deborah. And the Environmental Services Division is committed to the protection of the city's environment, community, and people. We are the sole provider of solid waste collection services for residential and commercial customers within the city of Santa Fe. The division collects trash and recycling from approximately 34,000 residential or single-family homes and about 2,500 to 2,600 business institutions and multifamily complexes. We offer different services to homes that are mobily impaired or elderly people. We have a special collection crew that goes out and will go to the house. And so people don't have to take their trash cans down to the bottom of the street. We have crews every day that'll go to the person's house and collect their recyclables and trash for those people. Currently, right now, we are working on a couple of different projects trying to get the new ESD building. We are trying to get fully staffed, and just so we can provide service to the constituents of the city of Santa Fe.
Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate that overview. And I'll defer to Nancy for an overview of the utility billing customer service division.
Could have skipped and I could have stayed. Good afternoon again. Obviously, you can probably read our mission, but mission of the utility customer service is to provide excellent customer service for the Santa Fe residents by ensuring accurate bills, services, timely collection of all past due accounts. Customers may not think that that's important because we're collecting it from them, but we do have to run like a business. Public utilities is in an enterprise fund, so everything that I bill, I need to collect so that each other division can, function and buy the equipment that they need. The division provides a one-stop shop for all utility customer needs in the area of water, environmental services, wastewater services, and even stormwater. We do bill for stormwater, which goes to Public Works. Description of services itself, provide prompt and courteous customer service, accurate water billing readings, timely billing for water, refuse, sewer, stormwater, proactive collection of services for delinquent accounts. And then, of course, we are a one-stop shop for any type of payments. You can come to customer service, you can come to the cashiers and pay cash, but you can also jump on our website. I think I just lost Mike. Our website, there we go, and do any of that through either an e-check, your bank account, a credit card, a debit card, through Paymentus, who is a partner with us in kind of an easier way to make payments online or over the phone, rather than actually coming to a physical building and paying, the dollar amounts. I do kind of want to highlight a couple of things. So utility billing, we bill $75 million a year. What that equates to is about 1.5 to 2 million per week. And we have 4 billing cycles. So we bill every single week of every single month of every single year to get to that 75 million. Over the past 6 or 7 months, we had 12 vacant positions. It has been very difficult to hire individuals. We would either not get any applicants or finally get some applicants, but then they wouldn't show up for the interview. Once that happened, even if we could make an offer, then they wouldn't show up for their first day of work. So I will very happily tell you right now, I only have 4 vacant positions. That is excellent considering when I walked in the door 4 years ago, I had 15. So I'm very excited and very happy, and we have a really good crew, really great employees. I praise them every single day because of what they have to deal with customers and emails and phone calls and everything. So they are truly my team, and they make me look really, really good. Follow the bad press, I guess, that's happening in the world nowadays. I really am proud of my team. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And I would just add that this is one of our most common interaction points with customers and represents all of our divisions. So it's taken very seriously and is my focus in terms of where I'm engaging to ensure we have no blips in our billing system and those customer interactions. So next slide, please. Thank you. I'm going to defer to Michael Dozier for our explanation of the wastewater division.
Michael Dozier, wastewater division director. So the primary mission of the wastewater treatment division is to ensure sanitary sewage produced within the city's service area, collected, conveyed, treated in compliance with state, local, federal regulations, guidelines, and to protect the environment, human health, safety, and welfare. So the wastewater management division doesn't only just treat the sewage, it also treats it to a point where you can get compost out of it, you can get reused water. Part of the sewage that's treated is also from septic tanks around the area. The Pojoaque Basin treatment facility is no longer accepting septic trucks. So now we've got pretty much all of the northern septic truck drivers have started coming this way to Santa Fe. There's more than just the treatment of the water. There's also like our employees. We've had times that we were at around 25 to 26 employees that we needed to hire, and we're down to 16. And in the next few days, we should actually be down to 13 because we've had 3 offers go out and 3 accepted. So those positions will hopefully be in the next few weeks part of wastewater's team. We're also working hard with ESD to get on the pop-up, what are they called? Pop-up, rapid hire, sorry. We want to make sure we have the same words for everybody. So the pop-up rapid hire are exciting because you get in and you actually, we end up starting to get in the point where we're fighting for the person on both sides. I was also informed this morning that one of my supervisors for the collections team, he's also just became certified to give training for CDLs. So that's another piece that was kind of a hurdle for us because our collections team needs CDLs, and with new systems now for the federal driving, it requires a certified instructor to teach you so that you can get a CDL. So these things are all pieces of the wastewater that we actually kind of commingle. We're looking at trying to help out a couple of guys with water to get their CDLs. So public utilities works a lot together.
Thank you, Michael. And I would just add, having worked in this region in the same industry, I will vouch for the efforts that have been put into recruiting here at the city, and they have been successful. From my firsthand experience, having trained some of the staff that have migrated to the city. So I appreciate that effort that you put in, and I do believe we have a great program and that there's a lot of effort that goes into that's very fruitful. So we like to go out with a splash. Our last division, if you go to the next slide, please, is our water operations division. And Mr. Jesse Roach, would you please give an overview?
Sure.
Intended, I'm taking it.
Yeah, pun intended. Jesse Roach, Water Division Director. And the mission of the Water Division is very simple: to provide a safe, reliable, and resilient water supply to meet Santa Fe's needs. And we do that with 5 different sections. There's a source of supply section that manages our Canyon Road water treatment plant and our 2 well fields. There's a Buckman Direct Diversion section, which manages the Buckman Direct Diversion and the water treatment plant associated with it, which is co-owned with the county. And then there's a transmission and distribution section to ensure that the water that's treated at any of those 4 sources is delivered to all of our customers. And then finally, there are 2 sections which I would say provide technical support for those other 3 sections, and that's the engineering section and the water resources and conservation section.
Thank you, Jesse. That is the end of our presentation, and I, Madam Chair, I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? All right, we'll start with Councilor Cassett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Dupuy and the entire team for being here. Really appreciate it. I have notes all over the place, so I apologize as I try to get through them, and I'll try to stick to each division as best as I can. Nancy, why don't we go ahead and start with utility billing? We know we're going to discuss it, so let's move forward and getting an update on where we are with the upgrade, with the contract with, I'm forgetting the Mountain River. Thank you. I kept wanting to say Rocky Mountain. I believe I saw in the budget that contractuals have decreased, and I am hoping that this is part of the decrease in contractuals this year.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, I'm going to try and give you an answer that is a little bit higher level. And ultimately, if there's some detailed questions, I'll defer to Nancy. But ultimately, I want to express, as I did earlier, that this is one of the areas that's most important to me. And having been exposed to where we're at with this process of setting up a new billing system and having gone through that process, and having to step back in other experiences in prior organizations. One of the things that I've been working with other departments to verify is taking a look at where we're at in this path and if it's the right path. And ultimately, we do need an extension on certain contracts that are in place so that we can verify that those intentions are able to be fulfilled. Because ultimately, we take it very seriously, and it's our priority to make sure that there's no blips in our billing system and that we continue to provide continuous expected service to our customers.
Thank you, Director Dupuy. And Nancy, do you want to take us down into the weeds with that? Okay. 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 And then, but when you said that they needed to be continued or extended, is it past what we had already approved and we're going to be coming for more requests for extension?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, that's correct. So without committing to something additional, our intention is to come to the next governing body and ask for a time extension so that we can finalize that decision relative to what the right path forward is.
Okay. Have you guys zoned in on a bit more of a time frame? I feel like it's always 14 months ever since I got onto the government. 2020 it was 14 months. So I'm curious where that time frame is looking at for when we think that extension will be built out and it will be able to be, it'll be fully internal once the extension's built out. Is that built out or? Wonderful.
So Nancy, I need you to turn your mic on. I'm so sorry.
Sorry. It will be internal. Yes, the whole system will be internal.
Okay, and then what's the time frame for when we think this will be complete?
We are working on that right now. Like Director said, we will have the complete information and upgradable project agenda and everything to council in the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And
Sure.
I do want to just really thank you because you have to come up in front of us and deal with this issue all the time. And I do appreciate it. I know that it's been really challenging. I know we've been really frustrated with the amount that we've had to spend on this contract and how long it's taken, but I do, we all know that you work really hard and do appreciate the effort that you've put into this and how frequently you have to come up and very professionally and calmly talk to us about this. So thank you. I understand. I'm sure that's not easy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. I have one more question that might be for Nancy or maybe Jesse combo. Having to do with leak detection. We already talked about ion water, but I've had a couple conversations recently about people who maybe are not utilizing the app or don't have the alerts, who have had leaks. And I think one was eventually notified by the city that there was a suspected leak. And I'm just curious, at what point do you see, well, their water usage has increased by this percentage, and therefore maybe we should talk to them? I'm just trying to understand that process a little bit more, because I know that it has been something that I've gotten a few complaints about. Obviously, people are very upset because their water bills are very high at that point, and they're trying to figure out paying them off without getting their water shut off. We always encourage utilization of the app at that juncture for future. But I am curious how the city also works and steps in to assist the customers here.
If you don't mind, I will start, and then I'm sure Jesse can add to it. It is a combination of obviously the water division and water conservation in particular, their section, and then of course utility billing. When we bill every Thursday, I'm going to try and summarize this so it's kind of short, but when we bill every Thursday, we work off of what we call a high-low report. And that basically just says what happened last month. We see that certain accounts may have increased by a lot or may have decreased. Is there something that we need to look at? For about 12,000 accounts each week, it's really hard to go through line by line by line by line because we have, of course, deadlines and timeframes and things like that. So we do really try to get those huge anomalies out there, and my billers call and let them know, leave a voicemail, not so much an email because we don't really know if they're going to get the call, the email readily fast enough. So we usually call, we try and leave a message, whatever phone number that we have on the account, it may or may not work sometimes. So we do contact those individuals and say, you're going to get a really high bill. We're very sorry. It does appear that you do have a leak. Call us. We'll talk to you. We'll try and help you. We have the leak adjustment application. If they can get it fixed, they can apply for the leak. We even have an unknown, which happens once in a lifetime, because they just don't know what happened. They can go get a police report and call it theft. There's lots of different things that they can look at. We hope that they get at the app. We obviously need ion water for everybody. We do look at it at a billing perspective, but of course, again, limited time, we can't go through every single one. And then when you change from winter use to summer use and those irrigations get turned on, that's usually when you see the biggest problems or the biggest issues, or even a vacant house where the toilet gets stuck, kind of open and it just flows through the sewer. You will never see a water spot, because it's just going right from the toilet into the sewer system. So we really do try to look at, from a billing perspective, why is this bill going up? Why, not so much obviously if it goes down, unless we don't have a read, then we go get the read, but if it goes up, we really do try and contact those customers. But again, when you're switching from winter to summer, we don't know if it's the irrigation. Okay, it might look similar to what they used last year. If it's a pool that they're filling or a hot tub or that, we don't really know what they may be doing in their backyard. Ion Water though, and I'll kind of transition over to Jesse and maybe this, we'll have a conversation. But Ion Water, we have reports. Water Conservation looks at those. They have one individual that looks at when this leak started and what he can do about it. And he contacts individuals, either a letter or a phone call or, or whatever, however that works, to try and at least let them know about it. But again, 40,000 accounts for one person to look at, 12,000 for one biller to look at, is unfortunately sometimes unrealistic to stop those. And it's already happened. So for 1 month, like, Director Oster had, for 1 month, we didn't catch it. We didn't contact her. And, and even if we did, it was like after the fact because we're billing it. So hopefully we can be a little bit more proactive and get more people involved and go to community events and get them signed up for Ion Water. And then hopefully Water Conservation, and I will stop, sorry, Jesse, can, assist and help those customers too.
So Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, I'll just add to that a similar theme. When I first started as division director, there was one staff member who was at least half of his time was spent on this low flow or the continuous flow detection program. And he was sending letters and reaching out to customers. And I don't remember what the threshold was. It was pretty low. And I also don't remember whether it was that there was not much of a response or the amount of water saved was not large, but ultimately the decision was made in the conservation office to dedicate this person to looking at the larger leaks. And so he focuses on a larger threshold now and is very engaged in very quick response to big leaks. And at the moment, we have decided that that's a more effective use of staff time in terms of the goal mostly being to conserve water and perhaps not to reach out to every person who has a low flow because that didn't seem as effective.
Thank you. And I will apologize right now for my lack of knowledge because you all have said a couple things that are now making me ask more questions. First of all, is there any technology that we could utilize that would maybe take some of the manual work out of this for tracking water usage and understanding, differences and not having to go through 40,000 accounts?
Well, I would say there's an app called Ion Water that we really want to encourage. And I'm sorry but we do have the technology and it's these meters that are reading all the time. Now, whether we could automate it, I think we could automate it to choose some threshold that's reasonable and automate the sending of letters and maybe tweak that a little bit so that we're not sending, 1,000 letters a week. Maybe we're sending 50 or 20. I think it's something we could play with a little bit from an automated perspective, because ultimately it did come down to the fact that if we have one staff member who's spending a significant amount of their time on this, what should they focus on? And we shifted away from trying to focus on everybody and send letters to everybody to try and have a really rapid response to the large leaks.
Yeah, that does make sense from a staff threshold aspect. And then Jesse, you had called it a continuous flow detection program, which is a little bit different than a large volume detection program. So are you able to see a different pattern of water usage when there is a leak or when there is a suspected leak as opposed to not one?
Yes. And I think really when it's continuous flow, that's when it's a problem, right? If there's flow at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m, then that's what you kind of determine or deem as a leak, especially if it proceeds for a while. And I think the larger volume alerts they're continuous flow, but maybe they haven't gone on for long enough to notice that they're a leak unless you have a threshold. So, a different threshold. So I guess maybe there's 2 different ways to look for leaks, but ultimately at the smaller flow rates, you wouldn't immediately realize it was an alert. It was a leak until it has gone for a certain amount of time.
Okay. Thank you.
To that, what we find in billing when we look at Ion Water is it may have started out as a 0.8 of a leak, 1 gallon of a week leak, 5 gallons of a leak, and then it shoots up to like 70 gallons in an hour. And that's when, so it might have been leaking for 2 years, but it was so small that yes, it's continuous flow, but it's so tiny, you don't really notice $1 or $2 extra maybe in your bill. But at some point, it then either breaks or becomes so large that because of the pressure or whatever in your pipes, that then you can actually see where it jumps up. So looking at and detecting an actual small leak versus the very large leaks is a little bit more manual intensive, because you really do have to look back to see it was a toilet, it was a handle that maybe stuck open, and you're only seeing half a gallon or a gallon for 2 months. But then at some point it changes, it modifies a little bit for whatever reason, and then it turns into a little bit larger, and that's where, it's more noticeable.
Thank you. Definitely a lot of complexity here. So I appreciate you all diving into this with me. Last question on this topic, or maybe just general. Do people have the option to sign up for text message communications? I know that I don't check my voicemails. I'm terrible at it. My email, kind of gets overloaded. But is there an option for text messages, or not at this juncture?
There's not at this juncture, only because we don't really have the cell phone to do the text messaging.
Right, the technology to
Technology,
send it.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I had maybe an office phone system that allowed text messages, we might be able
Right.
to do that. Or if an email can be reverted or converted to a text message, hopefully we could do that. But right now we don't have that technology, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. I
Sure,
appreciate that.
of course.
And the one thing I would add is that if it's possible to provide for text message alerts in Ion Water, something I could look into and get back with you on.
That would be wonderful. And again, back to Ion Water.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, speaking from personal experience, my recent leak, I got a notification through the app, Ion Water. It wasn't a text message, but it just popped up on my phone, and I said, oh, that's weird. 1 gallon per hour. What could that be? So
note to the public, turn on notifications for this app when it asks you if you will allow notifications. There is that stuff too. I actually, as you guys said that, went to the app store and downloaded it. So one more person, once I get signed up later today, will increase those numbers. Thank you both so much. I appreciate you diving into this. I've actually just happened to have a few conversations around this arena recently, and trying to understand what that looks like. And of course, for water, it's both the economic impact to our residents, as well as we all know how concerned this entire community is, this entire region, entire world is about water usage. And so I see it both as something really important for us, for the users of the system, as well as just, we don't want to waste any water. And so how we can find different ways to address that is helpful.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes,
I
you
am,
would like me to
I
start?
am
I was-
gonna, no, you can, I just think we ought to set the baseline again of 10 minutes per counselor, and we'll just run through one round and then come back, just so we get everybody with the ability to ask questions.
Sounds good. Sounds like my 10 minutes would be up then at this point. So I will yield the floor and come back if my other questions are not asked by my colleagues.
Okay, that works. I didn't start clocking you till 5 minutes ago, because I know. And then I thought, you know what? I think I better start paying attention, or we're going to be here till midnight. Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Counselor Cassett, for covering numerous things that I wanted to talk about. Will we have more information on what the budget recommendation is for the Green Bank?
Counselor Lindell, what's in the budget request right now is 500,000 for the creation of a Santa Fe Clean Energy Fund. The way that will be broken out is $200,000 that will go to the creation of the nonprofit organization. $200,000 that will be seed funding for that nonprofit organization after it is created, and $100,000 to reboot the Solarize Santa Fe program, from which this Clean Energy Fund was born, that accompanies the program by lowering rates for solar and making it so that residents can access more affordable loans through the work of the Clean Energy Fund.
So we will be creating a nonprofit.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, yes, that's the plan.
I'm not really,
Can I ask a question right here
Please.
while we're doing this? So what did we spend on this in this fiscal year?
So far, the funding has been utilized approximately $60,000 to scale up the Solarized Santa Fe program, which is currently underway and over 100 people have applied for. Another 100,000 is currently en route to be used in subsidies for that program to help households below 80% of the area median income afford the solar panels that they're receiving estimates for through the program. And 35,000 of it has been used for the contractor, the Coalition for Green Capital, to develop the launch plan, the pro forma, and recommend the financing products that we will utilize, basically the groundwork that's needed for the RFP. So that leaves approximately 300,000 that was unencumbered in this fiscal year. That's going to be carried forward to the upcoming fiscal year, if I understand that correctly. With the remainder added to it to allow for the RFP to be published and that budget that I just broke out to be utilized. The intention was to do so this fiscal year, but there were some significant delays from that contractor, the Coalition for Green Capital. Their work was to be completed by the end of October, but we did not get the final deliverables until last month.
Okay, so this is, I'm sorry, Councilor Lindell, I wanted to bring this up because I do think this is one of those examples where we do have some money that's been spent this fiscal year. This is an example of a program that was in the last budget or this fiscal year. It's taken a while to get it going. And what we're doing with this budget is just bringing it up to the original amount that was contemplated in this fiscal year. I may be mutilating that. Maybe I'll just let you talk about it, Director Oster.
Madam Chair and councilors, I believe that is correct. This is one of those examples. I just wanted to confirm with Alexis or Andy if they could verify. Or if someone from the budget team could verify that for me. So just to paraphrase what we're talking about here, we're talking about carrying forward unspent funds from the current fiscal year FY23 into the new fiscal year FY24 and essentially making the program full so that it has the full amount of 500,000 in this case to spend. And Andy, can you confirm that that's what we did with this particular item?
Madam Chair, Director Oster, you're correct. We actually budgeted $150,000 in new money for next year, and the rest is assumed that we will be able to carry forward based on what we have seen in activity in there so far.
And so does that bring it up? Does that 150,000 bring it up with the carryover to the original 500,000?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, I would add, so what that means is that the program has 500,000 available to spend in FY24. So they're going to, spend as much as they can now in the current fiscal year, and then they still have 500,000 available to spend in FY24. And I just wanted to just kind of clarify on the new money piece. I mean, that this is an expenditure that's been budgeted in previous years. So it's not an expansion over the base budget. It's just that we were able to maintain the same level of funding for the program by carrying forward some of the current year appropriation.
And I think that's the hard part to understand, right? It's not new money, it's regular new money.
That's correct, Madam Chair. It's the semantics are a little bit difficult, but it's basically an additional $150,000 will be needed next year to keep the funding at the same level.
Okay. Sorry about that, Councilor Lindell. Back to you.
Thank you for making that much more confusing than I thought it was. So is the city, I didn't know that we started nonprofits. How's that happening?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, this is something that we've discussed with the city attorney's office to evaluate if it's possible. There is precedent as long as the nonprofit serves a quote unquote governmental purpose. Through the RFP process, we will indicate that that must be in the bylaws of the nonprofit organization.
So you said there was a contractor that was to give us deliverables last October, but we just got them.
Just at the beginning of March, yes.
So are we continuing to work with that contractor?
No, we are not. The contract was to get the launch plan, the pro forma, the final deliverables, and they have completed that scope of work.
Okay. I'm not overly comfortable with us creating nonprofits. But I will move on. Councilor Cassett talked about our billing, which has been an ongoing heartburn for everyone that's even said the words. Let's talk a little bit more about Ion Water. It apparently has an ability to ping people on usage because it did Director Oster. And my question really is when do we get a ping as to the determination of a leak, or as I had last year, just a wildly massive flow that we never, you'd have thought my house was Noah's Ark. We used so much water and we never saw the water. We never knew where it was and we never found a leak. I don't know. But I mean, I was using like 5,000 gallons a day, and in a month, we use 20 some typically. So it was a big month. We did no celebrating about it. So how do we upgrade that software and that system so that it's more efficient to let people know sooner?
So on the app, if I could, Counselor Lindell, the app allows you to set up what you would like for your alert. So, and I can help you, obviously we can walk you through, but on the actual app, there's a section where you can say 10 gallons continuous is an issue, 50 gallons continuous is an issue. And then when it gets to that point, that's when you would be pinged or given the notification. So it really depends on you and your water usage as to how you would like to set that alert up. If you go on vacation, you might want to set it at, 2 gallons, because theoretically your house would be vacant, right? Unless you have maybe a neighbor checking your house or something. If you're home every day, you may want to say 50 gallons is reasonable because of a shower or laundry or, or anything like that. So it really is customer preference as to how you would set that alert to give you that indication. If you set it too low, you're probably going to get inundated. If you set it too high, you'll maybe never get, the notification. So
this probably exists and I just don't know about it. Pardon me. Do we have a YouTube on how to use the Ion Water app?
I don't know, Counselor.
I think it's a great idea.
It is an awesome idea. Yes.
And put it right on the city website that this is Ion Water. I just told my neighbor yesterday, she said, "Oh, I'm leaving town for a week." And I said, "Do you have the Ion Water app?" She goes, "No, because I saw the landscapers over there turning her landscape water on. I said, you better get it, because that timer may be bad and it may run the whole time you're gone.
Yeah.
So I think a YouTube video, step by step, would be a really good thing to have prominently on our website. So let's move on. I'm looking at vacancies. We have 61 vacancies. What's the area that we're in that's just critical that we have vacancies?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, we have a pretty even vacancy rate, although our highest percentage is the Environmental Services Division. And Deborah, if you had some comments relative to that.
Currently, we have about, like I said, 11 equipment operator positions that are vacant. We've had the position advertised all year long. We have it currently open right now for a month. I did talk to HR last week. We had nobody apply for the position. We had 2 potential candidates that we sent offered letters to. One accepted, one declined because he got an offer letter from Parks because they pay a little bit more. Probably the operations side is the most critical. We do have a couple administrative positions and a couple of mechanic positions that are open. The mechanic positions we cannot advertise or fill right now because we're waiting. We don't have enough room for them in the facility. So the critical area is the operations portion of it.
I would just add that we do have the RFP out for the expansion of the facilities that would then enable us to have a place for those positions to work.
Thank you. You know, I'd be remiss to not thank everyone that make sure that our water gets delivered, our toilets flush and goes where it's supposed to go. The drivers that run my route, they're absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I look forward to seeing them. It's just they do an amazing job every week. I'm really grateful to them. Just one more question. You're an enterprise fund and you don't get funding from the general fund. How's the balance? How are we doing with keeping that balance?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, I can't resist not getting a plug for the trash service truck drivers. My daughter is 3 and she takes great interest. She knows what color they are, what they do, all that type of thing. And will often be standing outside when they pass by because it's like the event of the week for her. And they are very cordial and, you know, wave, and it's a really exciting thing. So I had to say that we enjoy that as well. So thank you for pointing that out and appreciating it.
They're terrific, and you know, it may last 65 years for her.
Yeah.
Our kids should hang out because that happens in my household too.
I just want, you know, we've had some mammoth huge expenditures, some mammoth huge projects. How's our balance holding up?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, our balance is holding well, but I do anticipate that we need to ramp up our rehab programs, and that needs to be regularly kept in check in terms of how we provide for that funding. We do have significant efforts in obtaining outside funding sources, you know, so federal funding, state funding, et cetera. And we've been very successful at that, and that ultimately subsidizes our ratepayers' need to provide those revenues to cover all of those expenses.
That's all I have, Chair. I'll finish just by once again saying thank you to everyone. I always say it's amazing when I turn the faucet on and water comes out. It's an amazing thing. And I'm deeply appreciative of it. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Counselor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Dupuy, all your divisions here are all enterprise funded, is that correct?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I do think that you could look at the utility customer service division as potentially a internal service that is funded by the other divisions having ratepayers that are directly providing fees or revenue for those services. But other than that, you're correct.
So new monies in your division are different than new monies in the gross receipts or the general government division, because you're pretty much self-sufficient. Right?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that is correct.
Thank you. We did, I think we approved, Deborah, a rate hike, I think last year, or maybe the year before, that should go into effect this year. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I believe that the 5-year plan had one increase 2 years ago that was ultimately slightly delayed, maybe came in about mid-year. I don't know the exact dates, but that's my recollection. And then we have a planned, as part of that study and recommendation, increase that would have to come back to the governing body for approval.
Okay. Thank you. And then, along with what Councilor Lindell was asking about, I know you're self-sufficient, but what do your reserves look like? I know some of the divisions have to keep a certain percentage of reserves. Are we doing okay in our reserves?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I'm not familiar with our reserve policies, but I can look into that and get you that information.
Okay. I don't know if Jesse or Mike know, but I'm sure they're aware of it.
Or our director.
Madam Chair and councilors, I will say that working with unaudited information here, this is one of the things that Fitch, the bond rating agency, looked at, because these funds have outstanding bond obligations. And one of the things that they noted in their affirmation of the rating back in the fall was that the funds have significant reserves, significant fund balance. Jesse, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
I'll just add one thing, that in the water annual report, which will be on our website soon and we'll be reporting to governing body next week, there is a chart that shows our reserves and our projected reserves. And so I would affirm the response that currently our reserves are in good shape. But we do anticipate digging into those reserves as some of these large infrastructure projects hit our books.
Actually, on top of what Jesse is saying, we're also looking at possible bonding for anything that we're looking at larger projects, so we don't tap into those reserves.
Are we looking, what are the next major projects? I know we've done a lot, and I think we still have some current in wastewater.
So right now we're looking at the possibilities of working through the headworks and ultraviolet disinfection. We've also started talking about, is this the right direction to go, and should we actually build a new facility?
I don't know, Mr. Dupuy, if you'll know this, or maybe Mike will, but do we know how much we owe in arrears to the airport for leasing wastewater management property or property from the airport?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, we do have some preliminary numbers, and we've been working with the airport representatives to understand what their limitations are, and being creative to find the right pricing for continued use of the facilities and what the requirements are for coverage in past years.
And I think when your predecessor was here, he had mentioned that they had been putting that aside, understanding that this day was coming. I don't assume it'll be too big of a hit on your budget.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I agree with that, because our recent discussions with Public Works Department and the airport manager have been very meaningful in terms of them understanding what we use facilities for, them having developed understanding of what the FAA requirements are and how to do some financial analysis on what the right future use is and whether the wastewater services continue on those locations. One worth noting is we no longer land apply sludge to the area to the south of Airport Road. And that would be an area that is no longer necessary to continue to lease and therefore reducing those expenses.
We do still have to monitor it for a certain period of time. Do we know how long that is?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that's varying dependent upon our closeout of the discharge permit. And we're in negotiation with NEBD on what that requirement is.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman on Zoom, do you have questions?
Is that my new last name, Councilwoman on Zoom?
Councilwoman Villarreal, do you have questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, staff. To everyone who's there. I don't see you. I actually see the governing body on the camera. So hello. I just had some follow-up questions. There we go. I see staff now. Just some follow-up questions to, I guess I'll start with, let's see, environmental services. Maybe Deborah could just jump in and answer some. They're more curiosities. I didn't hear at the beginning what you said because of your mic. And you were talking about the tipping fees going up. And there was originally, you said 4.1 million, and now it's increased to 4.7. And did you say that that there was, you all were going to go out for bid for a new provider?
No, not for a new provider for the tipping fees, no. What it is, there is an increase. It's gonna be, I think it's $10 more for recycling and $250 more for trash per ton.
Okay. And so what did you say was going to go out for bid again?
It's gonna be for the building, the environmental services building.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, and that was actually another question I had. We did budget last year for the building, correct? And we didn't use it, or is this amount, the 1.3, an additional amount from last year's allocation for the new building?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, I would want to defer to finance to confirm, but my understanding is that there may have been some expenses, but minimal, and that whatever is unused would be rebudgeted with a 1.3 million total.
So maybe the staff could tell us what the amount was that's being moved over into this fiscal year, and then what's the new monies?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, I will get that information for you.
Okay, that would be great. Just so, I mean, I was just curious if it went up because of material costs, or just curious if what was different from last year to this year.
I think right now more, it's just in the design phase. And so with current year, and I may be wrong, but now that it's just going out to bid, just with more different costs of what they want in the building, I think it took a couple times to go over it. And so that's why the increase was for this year.
So they were changing some of the designs.
Especially when it came to the fleet section of it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure your staff looks forward to that new building. It's long overdue, so happy to see that we're moving forward with that. I was just trying to figure out what amount was from last year that's carrying over versus new monies. Let's see. I think the other question related to environmental services. I did have questions about the green bank. I think it's pretty much answered for the most part. Just see if there was something else. I guess it's really just like if you can update us as that moves along, would be helpful. So we know what's moving forward and when that gets created. And you did say 150,000 was bringing. Staff said 150K new monies to bring it up to the original amount of 500K.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, that is what was reported from finance. That is correct.
Okay, great. And then the other question I had was about just curiosity about the water conservation program rebate payments. Was that 100,000 an increase from rebate amounts in past years, or is that pretty standard? I couldn't remember.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, I'll have Mr. Roach provide the overview of the prior year's amounts budgeted and expended.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, in 1920 fiscal year, we spent approximately 26K on rebates. 2021 fiscal year, 156K. 21-22 fiscal year, 71K. And then budgeted this current fiscal year and next fiscal year for the 100K.
And do you think that's enough?
Well, we've sort of tried to keep the budget flat, so we went with something that was a little more than last year, a little less than the last 2 years average, and if we need more, we'll have to borrow for it.
Got it. What did you say last year was? I didn't catch that number.
About 71, almost 71,000
Okay.
was 21-22.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. And then I'm curious about the as we all are, billing system. And just to clarify, in the budget book, it says 550,000 for the utility customer service division for technical support. So I'm just clarifying, technical support is contractor, or is that specifically, or how does that connect to our technical support with IT?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, that funding would be for providing the implementation and continued support through successful deployment. And ultimately, given our current review of where we're at and determining what the correct path forward is, and that we're on the right path forward, that's likely something that we will have upcoming discussions, but this is the initial targeted amount.
For contracted services, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's just, is that like, are we overshooting? Because we hope it's gonna be less?
That's something that we have to answer in the upcoming interactions, given where we're at in the review process.
Okay, but you're saying that that's what you're, based on trends, that's kind of what staff has decided would be the potential amount. Versus
Correct.
us doing amendments through the year like we have been doing. I was just curious if that's kind of like what you all are thinking, that will be the cap to expect.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, I do not think that that will be the max that you should expect or that we expect. And ultimately, we will come to you with an explanation on what the deviation is and why.
So shouldn't we budget for more then?
At the moment, we are unaware of what the exact amount will be, given what path is verified through our collaborative process to ensure that we can implement this new billing system successfully without any impact to the customer.
I think what's been hard for probably even staff is, and then us as counselors, is just the amendments that we continuously see that's why I was asking about, thinking about the amount that's realistic instead of having to put staff and us through the process of amendments through the fiscal year. So I don't know if Missy Menace has a perspective on that.
Before I let her answer, I would just add, Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, that point is taken and we will take that into consideration and trying to provide something that's more an overview and enough to complete the project, given the conclusions of our review.
Bless you. Was that a sneeze? So yeah, I definitely concur with Director Dupree. We do the best that we can. I obviously, as we stated at the beginning of the meeting, while I appreciate all of everything that you guys do, I please don't take offense, but I don't like coming to counselor and council as often as I have had to either. So we're kind of both in the, in the same boat. We do the best projections that we can. It is a 23-year-old system. We've gone through 3 financial systems in those same 23 years. I've been with the city for 26. So we definitely do only want to bring $1 amount and not have to come and do amendments. But yes, unfortunately, there have been amendments and we will review and do the best that we can and hopefully have a last here shortly and soon so that we can finish our billing system.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Jimenez. Excuse me. I have one other question related to bullet point on the budget book. It's about the public utilities, the department's internal audit. And I was just curious where that was presented, the findings. Was that just at utilities? Because I don't recall that. I'm not on utilities, but I was just curious about that piece.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, if I could maybe have a lifeline from finance to make sure that I'm not misinterpreting anything, but I'm understanding your question to be, what is the status of our internal audit? And I'm not sure the details of that.
Madam Chair and Councilor Villarreal, I am not aware of an internal audit that's currently in process for public utilities.
It already ended. 8 months ago or so, there was a final determination. There were 10 items, I believe, that were talked about. So yeah, it's definitely done. It was not presented to council. My understanding, it was just to public utilities to say this is where we were at. And then it just kind of combined in with how we can help utilities get the correct and updated information to the finance department. Since we are such a large department of, all of the numbers that tie into the financial system. I have it in my office. I can bring it back if I need to and get with Director Oster. And if we need to bring that forward or get a copy to you, we definitely can.
Yeah, I think it made sense that you probably presented to the utilities committee. And I think it's just anytime we have any internal audits, I think the entire governing body should get a copy of it. So if maybe the city manager can make that note and then just make sure that we all get to see the internal audit, just so we're up and up about what's happening. I think internal audits are important for all of us to see. So if we can share that with the rest of the governing body, that would be great. And I think the last question I had was just curious from Director Dupuy about how we're proactively looking at pipes and water lines replacements and upgrades, since we have been having more issues now in the city with older infrastructure. And if you all have a plan, and is there a budget around that? And is that like a combined budget between you and Public Works, or how does that work?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, I'll give an overview, specifically since you asked me, but additionally, I'd also defer to water and wastewater division directors to add anything that they feel is meaningful response to that question. But ultimately, the comprehensive approach to rehab is one that is an industry expectation, and there's lots of tools and capabilities built around being able to accomplish that type of program. And it is what we're trying to build out, but ultimately the tools that were described by Michael Dozier earlier are part of that process so that that program can be successful. And we are currently working on that for both water and wastewater. And with regards to water, there is a evaluation of software that would be the equivalent of what was discussed by Mr. Dozier.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, I could just add slightly to that. In the water division, we call it the priority line replacement, which is specific to water mains. And it fits into a larger asset management plan. And the priority line replacement has currently been budgeted at about $1.6 million per year. We're looking to increase that budget through time. And I would say the way things have been done is generally staff understanding of pipes that are in bad shape and that are on a history of failure are key parameters used to decide, along with when streets are redone. Those three pieces feed into deciding when to replace a main. But we've just completed, as part of this larger sort of, I would say, top-down asset management plan, an assessment which looks at the criticality of the infrastructure as well. So it looks at the age and the criticality, so to determine sort of a likelihood of failure and a consequence of failure, and in that way prioritize these mains. And what we're doing now is feeding the smaller mains into our schedule, and then the larger mains, we're looking into technologies to actually do a physical infrastructure condition assessment before we determine that we need to replace them. Because just because they're old doesn't mean they need to be replaced. And the example I always use is they put in a ductile iron main in 1880, and it's still one of our best mains because I think it was overbuilt. It's an incredible piece of infrastructure, and we're not going to replace it as long as it's still working. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. I think it's more involved and complex than, the general public knows, because I think people just assume, oh, it's old, get rid of it. And so I think that's helpful. As long as you all have mechanisms to determine old infrastructure, or not old, I shouldn't say old, but infrastructure that's wearing down, and that we could proactively replace things before they actually break. And I'm assuming you all have a mechanism for that in your plan, in your priority line replacement plan.
Yeah, and again, that's where we do have an entire inventory of 600 miles of pipe, and depending on the type of pipe and the age of pipe and the criticality of the pipe, that we prioritize which should be replaced first, and they're set into a schedule for replacement. And that's the software that Director Dupuy was referring to, is that we would like to have it, scheduled out for essentially for decades as to which pipes we intend to replace when. But before we actually replace them, the piece that we haven't quite figured out how to do and we're working on now is the actual condition assessment to make sure that these are needing to be replaced.
Great.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, I would just add, if you happen to remember, when Mr. Dozier was presenting earlier, he mentioned that we're able to tie the videos with the sewer GIS system, and that's a industry accepted and very standard way to evaluate the status or the condition of sewer infrastructure. It's much more difficult to do something similar for water. And so looking at the options and having pilot implementations is something that will help us to bring value to that process.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for your important work, and I have no further questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Villarreal. A couple of things, Director Oster, you had a couple of comments on some of the subjects that have come up. I believe the utility audit and also the money on page 94 for the Environmental Services Division. And I'll just defer to you. Maybe you could just walk us through those thoughts.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the 1.3 million on page 94 for Environmental Services Division for a new maintenance building, that entire amount of 1.3 million is carried forward from FY23 to FY24. I believe that was one of the Councilwoman's questions. And then the Public Utilities Internal Audit Report is posted on the City Audit Committee webpage under reports, internal audit reports, and I will send the committee a link. And that is, like I said, on the city's public website on the page for the audit committee. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. I do have a couple questions as well. And then, I don't know, we might have to go back to Councilor Cassett because I cut her off at 10 minutes. And anybody else on the committee who still has more questions. Let's see, on page 98, under resource conservation, there's a 23% percentage change between 2023 and 23-24. It's about $330,144. Curious what that number represents.
It's possible to have some detail provided from finance. That would be greatly appreciated.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I was still on internal audit reports. Could you?
Sorry, page 98.
Okay.
At the bottom of the page, resource conservation, that line item is being decreased by 23% or $330,144.
Madam Chair, let me see if I can get someone from the budget team up to walk us through that. Here comes Andy. Well, while we're looking at this, I just want to note that the actual expenditures for FY22 were quite a bit less than what was budgeted. So maybe that we're adjusting down to closer to what the actual expenditures were. But I'll let Andy provide more information about that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, which line were you looking at again?
Resource conservation on page 98. It's the 1, 2, third box
Okay.
down, second line.
Yeah, that is the Madam Chair, that is the debt service line for the citywide solarization project. It was put in environmental services. It just fluctuates based on the annual debt service needs. So that's really all that's in there.
Okay, well, and since that's sort of interesting, let's just take a few more. Looks like if you go to the top of that page, environmental services, utility customer service, and wastewater, and water operations, those are all going down. Roughly why? Big
Madam-
broad brush.
Madam Chair, big broad brush. Some of those are project related expenditures. So one-time expense that will fluctuate over time, depending upon which projects we have going at different times.
Okay. And we already talked about contractual and utility line item that's going down 11%. Capital purchases going down 19%, a little over $1 million. What's that one?
Madam Chair, just to mention what was brought up before, we do happen to come to the governing body and request a bar whenever we have those expenditures for rehab, et cetera.
Okay. And I did want to go back to this, and I don't know if Mr. Dozier's had to leave us. Is he back there behind the screen? I just can't see him. Sorry about that. I'm curious, so hold on, got to go back to the beginning. Oops, that's too far to the beginning. 2, 3. Sorry. I think I'm getting too, oh, here we go. This is what I want. Those are a different day. When you were talking about, or maybe, was it you or maybe it was Nancy? No, it was you. You're talking about endpoints. Who was talking about endpoints? Sorry, Nancy. So didn't we upgrade to Badger readers?
We did in 2015, 2016, we changed all of our meters to Badger meters, and attached to the Badger meter is the endpoint.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out and that, when you say endpoint, that's the thing that reads with the cellular or with the device.
Yeah, it's just a little box that sits on top of the meter and sends the actual meter read to us through cellular.
Okay, and I'm not sure, I mean, I could go back and watch, but that'll take too much time. So now that I have you here. So you said something about 259 meters read manually. What year was that? January of
2020.
2020. There we go. And then this year, 2023, January, it was up to 1,967.
Correct.
Okay. And the sole source contract that's going to be coming through is going to help us switch out more of those endpoints. Did I get that right? Because you did something with the help of Jesse's team, 35,000.
Right. So we've switched out all of the endpoints. The sole source is for the price per endpoint per month for the solar reads for the next 10 years. So we had a contract with Badger for 10 years. That is now needing to be either updated or renewed or changed or modified for hopefully the next 10 years with whatever that cost is that we are trying to negotiate.
Okay, so we're done actually doing the physical change of the endpoints.
There's probably still a couple, maybe 500 that still need to be switched out that T&D and my water meter readers are still working on. There's 2 or 3 different types of endpoints. So we're trying to get those endpoints that work maybe in the mountainous area up there so that they'll read more often. So we don't have to go do a manual read. So there are about 3 different types that we will be maybe moving to a different area to see if they work a little bit better in those mountainous areas so that we don't have to read 250. Maybe we get it down to 60 would be just awesome.
Okay. And that's going to help with the 1,967 that you had to read in January of this year?
Every month, it went really high. It got to like 2,400. In January, it's now, kind of trickling down. For the 2 weeks this month, we're down to about 600 in 2 weeks. So I'm hoping that keeps trending down. The new endpoints that we have and the correct endpoints in the right area, just bring that number down that we have to manually read.
Okay, I think I got confused with the sole source contract and what was going to help you bring that number down, which obviously was of great importance. So, okay, thank you. I think that's all I had. Other questions from the committee? Council, we can go another round if we're up for it. Councilor Cassett?
Thank you so much. And actually, the vast majority of my questions were, of course, asked by my brilliant colleagues. So thank you all for that. I just have 2 more. One, Deborah, maybe you would answer this one as I don't see Carol here. But regarding Keep Santa Fe Beautiful, and they had the pollinator garden, they also have an art and parks. I don't know if there's further plans for more pollinator gardens or more arts and parks, especially in districts 3 and 4. If you listen to other budget hearings, I frequently talk about that placemaking that I want to make sure happens in districts 3 and 4. I know the pollinator garden is off of Old Pecos Trail. The art and park was almost in District 4, but then it got redistricted and she took it from me. So it went to District 2. So I am curious if there is going to be more of those projects in the south side.
Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett, I will get with Carol. I am not sure on that, but I'll definitely get an answer for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And then of course, my advocacy is for that to be a yes. And then my last question has to do about basically emergency water situations. I've had a few scenarios where I've had a constituent reach out to me after hours on the weekends. I just called John. Is there another city manager, Blair John, not John Dupuy John. But is there another contact that constituents should be reaching out to, after hours or on the weekends if there is some emergency water scenario? Unfortunately, water is one of those things that, you need it immediately. You can't really wait till Monday at 8 a.m. So Nancy.
So they do call the main number, 505-955-4333. After hours, we'll pick up. We have a call center and administrative customer service function. And then they call the after hours, individual if they need the meter turned off immediately because it's a huge issue. They kind of triage it to see what might be going on and whether we can handle, whether we can take care of it immediately or if it is something that needs to be taken care of on a Monday. But yeah, we do have the after hours emergency, but it's the same number and it just rolls over to the customer service after hours, call center.
Wonderful. And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
7 days a week. Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
Glad to hear. Thank you. And that being said, I just really want to recognize the teams that did go out to address the issues that I've had constituents reach out to me on weekends or 8:30 p.m. on a Friday night. So really, really thank you so much for your very quick response. Again, water is one of those things that if it's shut off or overflowing, you can't really wait on it. So I really appreciate that, that attention and that quick response. So thank you. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Other questions from the committee? Councilwoman Villarreal, do you have other questions?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I would just like to echo the thanks that have been given to the work that's being done by this department. It's, as I think Councilwoman Cassett suggested just now, it's not only it's in the hours of, the normal workday, but these are important services that you all provide. Sometimes the public is grouchy, sometimes counselors are grouchy, and just, thank you for your professionalism and the hard work you do to keep these systems working at their highest levels and providing the services that you do. Councilor Lindell, you had your hand up.
Ready to make a motion?
Okay,
I'd move that we give a preliminary approval to the public utilities budget as presented.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to preliminarily approve this budget. If we could get it, is there discussion or can we we could get a roll call? Thank you.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And then before we adjourn, Director Oster, what time do we convene tomorrow and which budgets? I think we're at noon tomorrow or no, tomorrow's Wednesday. We're at 1. Okay, sorry.
Madam Chair, let me verify in PrimeGov.
Yeah.
Public Works is presenting tomorrow and our start time is 12:30, but just I want to have eyes on the agenda when I'm saying that. So let me just verify that.
Okay, so I misspoke. I'm glad I asked. Split right down the middle. All right,
Okay.
so
Our published agenda is just loading. I'm sorry, it's slow. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, my computer just froze. I'm positive. Public Works, 12:30 tomorrow.
okay, terrific. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.